Hi, everyone. Thank you for being part of our day. You were invited and you chose to say yes, and we're very grateful for that. I'm Judi Platz. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Support Logic. It's good to see so many familiar faces. Some of you from my previous life, whether it was Salesforce or TSIA. So thank you for stopping by to say hi. Thank you for the hugs. I appreciate all of you. On behalf of the entire staff of Support Logic, we thank you for being with us. First and foremost, I would like to thank our two sponsors for today. We have Warp Drive TechWorks and Tivona Global. If we have representatives, hold up your hands. I know, there you are. Look around. These are some fantastic partners to us that we've worked with over the years. Stop by, say hi, and thank you for being part of our day and allowing us to put on this event. Thank you to our speakers. So this afternoon, you're going to hear from a number of individuals, both with Support Logic and from Support Logic customers. And I want to give you thanks. It's Friday. You had other places you could be, and you chose to be with us and come on stage. Thank you very much for that. It means the world to us. I'm looking forward, after I leave the stage, Karan Sood, our Chief Product Officer, who you saw a moment ago on slides, he will be taking over and presenting the keynote. And Karan, thank you for being with us as well. And lastly, thank you to every single customer and, if I may be so bold, prospect who is joining us in this room today. Support Logic is absolutely committed to improving the support experience across the industry. For those of you that remember my time at TSIA, it was all about support and the value that support could bring to organizations and really improving not only the customer experience, but the entire business. So I believe in support so much. I was a customer of Support Logic, and I chose to leave Salesforce to come to Support Logic and take on this role because I think that every one of us in this room who is a part of a support organization, we know with passion and enthusiasm what support brings to the business and to the overall customer experience. So thank you to every one of you for what you do in the industry. It doesn't go unnoticed. Sometimes support can feel like that little bit of a thankless job, but it's not. I love every moment of support. I love every person in support because I know how we have to be wired to do the job that we do. And thank you for going the extra mile. It doesn't matter who you are, a support engineer, a support manager, all the way up. You know what's involved in caring for customers and doing it with empathy and compassion. So thank you. And thank you for being here. We're building an incredible community of support whisperers, as we call them. So to date, we've had 4,000 people engaged in person, virtually, or on demand. A number of you were just certified this morning, taking our AI certification. Support Logic Academy. The course that you attended this morning was put on by Support Logic, of course, our Academy arm. You can see all of our content free. So you can go out to our YouTube channel. Everything that we have ever created has been digitized and available for you. So if you want to continue the experience, please go out, search on YouTube for SX Live. You'll find all of our shiny, smiley faces and all of the content that we have. There's a number of in-depth demos. There are sessions from the last 3 years of us putting on a conference. There are training sessions, anything you could imagine. So please do make that available. Use it as an asset in your own organization. We're giving back by making sure all of that content is always available, and you're welcome to it. Okay? So for today, the certification was this morning. This afternoon, what we're going to do is be real. We're cutting through the hype. You're invited to participate in some technical deep dives that will happen. And of course, networking opportunities. Please do network, find the opportunity. There are so many amazing people in this room today. When I look through who is registered and who is with us, I'm impressed by a lot of you that I've never met personally, but I know your bio. And so please take the time and network. We have the product keynote with Karan. We have a customer panel that I'll be doing with 3 customers from Support Logic. We're not only talking about support logic during that panel, I promise. We have our deep dive on case routing, another deep dive on Elevate, which is our QA. And some of you I was talking to earlier about manual and auto QA. Great session. You'll want to be in that. Support logic machine learning, our ML team, as we call it, they are going to deliver an amazing deep dive for you as well. Then we'll have a closing keynote. And then, like I said, the final, our networking and our chai time, sponsored by Warp Drive Tech. Now, I have the honor to introduce my colleague, Karan Sood. Karan is our Chief Product Officer. And without him, none of what you saw earlier today or the rest of this afternoon is possible. So, Karan, please join me.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome. There you go.
Thank you so much. Also joining me on stage is my colleague, Kritika. So a bigger round of applause for Kritika as well, please. All right. First of all, I want to extend my heartfelt thank you to all our customers and partners that are joining us here today. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, as Judy showed in the agenda. We have a power-packed agenda to inspire you, to empower you. But more importantly, as Judy also mentioned, we are here to basically learn from each other, build connections. So I highly encourage that all of you guys, please stay through the evening. We have not just the sessions, but we also have breaks in between where we would all love to talk to each of you. It's impossible to be at a product keynote in 2025 where we don't talk about agentic AI or AI agents. And well, this is going to be no different. But I promise this session is 80% going to be about live demos. Everything that we have built using AI over the last 7 years. And we'll talk about the history and evolution of AI at Support Logic as well, very briefly. But everything that we've built over the last 6, 7, 8 years that a lot of our wonderful customers are using today, we are actually going to show you that live. Now, again, sometimes live demos can go wrong. Like I always say, they always work perfectly until you want to show that it works perfectly, right? So if it goes wrong, we'll figure it out. But before we actually go into the demos, I know in this room there is a lot of our existing customers that are very familiar with our portfolio, but we also have some prospects, some very new customers as well. So I'm going to spend at least 5 to 7 minutes talking about what Support Logic Cognitive AI Cloud, as I call, is all about. I call it almost like a 4-layer cake. You have the data extraction engine, you have the signal extraction engine. We'll talk about each of these things. There is the context engine, and then you have the AI agents that are built on top. And then, of course, all these capabilities packaged together can be consumed within Support Logic's software as a service applications that we will show you. But it could also be consumed in different forms and fashion within some other platforms as well. But let's just talk about the 4 layers that we were talking about, right? There are some very unique challenges that all of you are very familiar with from a customer support domain perspective. First of all, there are so many customer engagement channels and data that is siloed in so many different systems. You have your CRM system, you could have a different chat platform, you could have a different voice or a telephony platform, you could have a different knowledge base coming from different vendors. So one thing that we do at Support Logic is we've built connectors to basically extract all the relevant data and insights from all your connected systems, almost normalize them in a fashion so that it starts to make sense. It's not just raw data, it starts to make sense. That's the data extraction. On top of that, you have the signal extraction engine. This is the core IP of what we have built over the last so many years. One thing that I feel extremely proud of is we all know all the hype around large language models in the last 12 to 24 months. But if you look back at Support Logic's history, way back in 2018, 2019, when Google released its first modern large language model, it was called BERT, some of you may remember. Support Logic was one of the first companies in the Silicon Valley, at least in the startup ecosystem, that was already building on top of BERT. We built classifiers. We built our aspect-based sentiment detection engine way back in 2018 itself. So the signal extraction engine, so all the data that we extract from all the different systems, our signal extraction engine derives all the signals and the sentiments and the insights from it. And we'll look at all of this in detail. On top of that is the context engine. Now, the context engine essentially builds some kind of a contextual memory across time, across channel, across people, across different systems of record, all the data that has been extracted by the data extraction engine. This is again extremely important. All of you would agree with this because we all know in complex tech support, it's never a first call resolution. There is always a ticket that's going to run for a long time. Multiple agents could be working on it, could be maybe even multiple teams. Engineering could be involved, customer support could be involved, customer success could be involved. So it's extremely important that you don't just look at point in time context. You actually carry forward the context for a case during the life cycle of the case, or even for a customer across the life cycle of the customer itself. So this is what the contextual engine does. And then on top of that, we've built the different AI agents. For example, we have the sentiment agent, we have the escalation agent that predicts escalations. We've built the prioritization agent that helps an agent actually prioritize their backlog. We have the voice agent, and we'll talk about all of these things. But these are, think of them as different workflows that we've built out of the box that can automate certain tasks. Now, again, in the whole agentic framework terminology, there is, in the last 12 to 24 months, there is so much discussion around autonomous and semi-autonomous agents. We already, for example, I think the best example that I have is of our routing agent that we built way back in 2020, 2021, where the routing agent essentially picks a case and based on historical data, routes the case to the right agent. We were already supporting the two modes, the semi-autonomous, where a manager can essentially be using the intelligence of the routing agent to route the right case to the right agent, but we already had the fully autonomous mode as well. So again, we started to foray into some of the basic principles of agentic framework that we're all talking about now, way back in 2020, 2021 itself. So basically, all of this, the 4-layer cake, is what we collectively call as the cognitive AI cloud. Also, let's touch a little bit on the technology behind the 4 layers of the cake. So it's basically an ensemble of the best-in-class AI technology that we've built over years. As I said, we started building classifiers on top of BERT in 2018, 2019 itself. Then we basically created a scoring engine, which is some form of, in a very rudimentary terms, it's some form of a heuristic scoring model that we built in 2019, 2020. We have a multi-model recommendation engine that we use for the case routing that I was talking about. Last year, we built what we call as the precision RAG framework. And this is actually absolutely worth a little bit of a deeper dive because this is such an important piece in complex tech support. So basically what our RAG engine essentially does is it can comb through all the connected data sources. These could be static or dynamic data sources. Think of them as your knowledge bases, your Jira tickets, your Confluence pages, your historical cases. And it takes, through the technology that we've built, it summarizes the entire case. And rather than taking a keyword-based paradigm, it takes the entire case summary, feeds it into the RAG engine, which combs through all the connected data sources and comes back with very precise answers. And we'll talk about the use cases for this during the demos. But all these different components of the technology platform have been there for a long time. We use many other things that you can see on the slide. We have the gradient boosted decision trees. We have the domain-specific annotation models. As we know, sometimes the terminology for every company could be somewhat different. And for us to be able to detect sentiments within that large language pool of terminology, we've built some domain-specific annotation models as well. So we've essentially created an ensemble of different AI technologies over the last couple of years. And then, of course, from a packaging perspective, there are 5 user personas that we serve, 4 that you see on the screen, but we're actually going to demo all 5 today. One is the support engineer. Then you have the support leaders or the escalation managers in certain cases. You have the customer success managers, the account owners. You have the end customers. And then you have the QA auditors. And basically, for each of these different end-to-end workflows, let's call them as agentic workflows. What we've essentially done is we are stitching together the different AI agents that we had on the previous slide. For example, for a support engineer, it could be the language agent, the voice agent, the escalation agent, all in a workflow stitched together to solve a real workflow or a task. And that's exactly what we're going to look into during the demo. So now is, I would say, the main part of the show, which is live demos. Kritika, are we ready? Cool. All right. The first persona that we're going to take is a support engineer. Typically, a support engineer, from a workflow perspective, it can be different in different companies, but from a workflow perspective, is typically first reviewing their backlog and then deciding which is the right tickets or the cases they need to work on. So we'll look at that, how support logic helps with that. Then we will see how we use our summarization agent, how we use our RAG technology to help an agent troubleshoot a complex case, how any agent can get a summary and get very precise answers as part of troubleshooting for a particular case. They can also, in addition to that, search for additional knowledge, articles, validate the next steps before they actually get back to the customer, and then, of course, craft a response and send that response back to the customer. So keep this, I would say, workflow in mind, and now let's go into the demo. Okay, so what you are seeing right now is a Salesforce CRM. This could be any of the other CRMs. We support many other CRMs out of the box. Could be a Zendesk, could be a Freshworks, could be a ServiceNow, could be a Microsoft Dynamics. So what we've essentially done is we've built reusable widgets that can be embedded as an iframe within your system of record. In this case, it's a Salesforce. You see the support logic tab at the very top. So the support logic tab is essentially showing to the agent all the cases in that agent's backlog. But it's not just the plain list of cases. As you can see, we also have, as you can see on top of each of those cases, in the different colors, you have the different signals and the sentiments that have been detected. You also see under the description of the case, you have the score. So you have the, for example, you have the sentiment score, you have the attention score, which is coming from our scoring engine. So all of this basically helps an agent prioritize their backlog. They can, of course, sort through this list. They can sort it by attention score, it's the default, by sentiment score, or any of the other parameters. But in the end, this helps an agent determine which are the right cases they need to be working on. Let's say as an agent, now I've identified one of the cases. So now I go into the details of that particular case. On the left-hand side, you have your standard Salesforce view. For some of you that use Salesforce today would be very familiar with. But then on the right-hand side is where you see, again, the reusable widget from Support Logic. What you're seeing right now is the Resolve Assist tab. Again, as I was saying, what this is essentially doing, and now think of it as a case, may have been a case that has been open for, let's say, a month. Many different agents may have worked upon it. There must have been so much communication between the customer and the different agents that were involved. So the first thing that we do is we use large language models to summarize the case. And the summary is in terms of the current status. No, sorry, just scroll up, Kritika. So it has the problem statement, it has the current status, and it has the next steps. Now, right below this, you also see, for example, the knowledge summary. Now, this is again where we are making it easy for the agent. We're not just telling him what the problem of the case is through the case summary. We are already passing the case summary that was derived there into our RAG engine, which combs through all the connected data sources. And based on that, we are feeding that into the large language model again and coming up with a knowledge summary for the agent. So basically helping an agent troubleshoot the case already. Below that, you also see the referenced knowledge sources. So the knowledge summary is typically created out of the top referenced knowledge sources. And these could be your cases, historical cases. This could be your knowledge base. This could be Jira. This could be Confluence. For example, I can click on Freshdesk, which in our demo system is our knowledge base. It will open up, for example, the knowledge base. So the agent is getting a summary of the case, is getting a summary of what he or she should be doing, and all the relevant knowledge sources that are relevant for this particular case. Right next to that, you have the Case Insights tab. On the Case Insights tab, it is also giving the agent a very quick overview of what is the overall sentiment on this particular case. Because when the time will come and I need to respond back to the customer, I need to understand what the sentiment is. If there is a lot of frustration, maybe I want my response to be more empathetic, right? So it gives me a very quick summary of the different signals that have been detected, the sentiment score, the attention score, and so on. In addition to this, what the agent can also do is they can manually type anything that they think based on their historical context or knowledge that could be relevant for this particular case. So outside of the case context, you could also directly look up for anything, which is again using our RAG search engine. It's basically passing this context, whatever you've typed into that box, and it is essentially again finding relevant knowledge sources for whatever I've tried to look for. Let's say now in this particular case, I have all the relevant insights that I need. From here, I can directly now generate or compose a response for the customer. So what it basically does is, now again, this is where our response agent comes into play, where we're taking the knowledge summary, we are taking some of the other historical context from the case, and already helping an agent draft a response that they can directly send to their customer. And there are many different things that they can do here. For example, you could select a particular portion of the text. You can change the tonality. For example, if I want to make this more empathetic, I can do that, which is using our language agent. I could also, for example, change the styling. I could also change the language. For example, I know the customer likes to communicate in a different language. I can change the response from English to Japanese in this particular case, right? So making it very easy for an agent to be able to troubleshoot the case, get a summary of what the problem in the case is, find the right troubleshooting steps, find the relevant knowledge articles, and then ultimately compose a response that can be sent directly from here back to the customer. The last thing that the agent can actually also do here is they can also, once they found, for example, a relevant knowledge article, they can also, for example, attach that knowledge article now to this case, because this helps our RAG engine get better. This is the feedback loop that we are providing back to our RAG engine, that this was exactly the knowledge article or whatever that helped me solve this particular case, thereby improving the precision and the accuracy of our RAG engine. Or for example, if there was no knowledge article that was directly detected, what we are also working on is the agent can actually directly create a knowledge article from the knowledge summary itself, thereby actually adding to your knowledge base. So this was the first demo, which is for the agent persona. What we've seen, again, just to recap, help an agent review and prioritize their backlog, troubleshoot a complex case, summarize the case and get precise answers, search for additional knowledge, and validate the next steps, and ultimately craft a response and link the knowledge article to the case or create a new knowledge article altogether. With that, let's go now to the second part of the demo, which is for the support manager persona. Typically, support managers are either working on escalations or working to avoid escalations, right? So I think that's the flavor of our demo here. We're going to see how a support manager can monitor the support queue, focusing on urgent and escalated cases. They can review a case that has been predicted by our escalation engine, which is, let's say, likely to escalate. We're going to look at one of those cases. Again, we can look from a manager perspective, how they can benefit from the summary. Very different from, for example, the agent persona, because the agent is typically going to be troubleshooting the case, whereas the manager probably is going to be looking at what should I be doing, for example, to avoid this case from getting escalated, right? Maybe they want to put a swarming team together. Maybe they want to reassign a case. So we will look at some of those things, and then they can leverage AI to basically determine the next best actions. And then, of course, in this particular case, we will also see how a support manager can directly mark the case for audit to identify training and coaching needs maybe for their support engineers. So with that, we switch to the demo. Okay, what you're looking at right now is, let's say, our landing page, the console. It's like the knock center for a support manager, or like a cockpit for a support manager, where they can get a bird's eye view of everything that's happening in their business, cases that are escalated, that are likely to escalate, and so on. This can be very easily configured to a user persona, or can be very easily configured to show you the right data that is relevant for you. Now, let's say in our case, we have already identified a case. We directly, as a support manager, dive into this case. Now, intentionally, we've taken a case, in this case, which is a very complex omni-channel case. Imagine this case could have opened, 15, 20 days back. Probably it started on the web, then there were chat interactions, maybe there was a voice call. So what we are able to do is you get the entire timeline view of all the interactions across all channels that the customer has had with your company. Now, in this case, since there is also a voice call, what we also do is we transcribe the voice call, and then we can also detect the sentiments, not just on the web case, but also on the voice call itself. And then you can click on those signals at the top, for example, frustration, and it directly takes you to the portion of the case where that particular signal was detected. So basically giving a support manager who's not day-to-day working on this particular case, it gives them a very good overview of what's the sentiment, what are the different signals on this particular case. And then on the right-hand side, similar to what we saw for the agent, a support manager could also benefit from getting a very quick summary of what has all happened on this particular case. And as I said, maybe from a support manager perspective, it's more important to think about the next steps. Maybe they need to put a swarming team together and they can collaborate with different team members from here itself, or maybe they need to reassign a case, but still getting a summary of what has happened on the case so far, what the current status is extremely beneficial for a support manager as well. But now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to basically start an escalation review. So since this is a case that our engine suggests is likely to escalate, the manager directly from here can start what we call as an escalation review. What you see here under the escalation prediction review are some insights generated by our ML models on why it thinks this case is likely to escalate. For example, this case has been open for 26 days. There have been 34 conversations between the customer and the company, and the case is still not resolved. There are 9 negative signals. Or maybe it's got something to do with the agent. The agent has been involved in 11 other such escalations, or there's a poor time overlap between where the agent sits and works from a time zone perspective versus where the customer is. Or from a customer activity perspective, not just this particular case, let's say there are 18 other open cases with the same customer. So all of these different, let's say, signals or insights are telling our escalation prediction model that this case is likely to escalate, and we are able to surface all those insights for a manager. So as a next best step, what the manager can do is, the AI is telling the manager that maybe you need to reassign this case to a different agent. So this is where, as Kritika clicked on it, you are able to see a recommendation. This is where our routing agent comes in. It's able to give a recommendation of the different agents that probably are a better match than the person who's currently working on this particular case. And this could be based on many different things. It could be based on time overlap. It could be based on skills of the agent. It could be based on interaction between specific agents and specific customers. It could be to do with just the bandwidth of the agent, if the agent is already working on so many other cases. So all those different factors in the end give a score that you see right here. So based on this, the manager can choose who is the best agent to be working. For example, in this case, Kathy seems to be the best agent to be working on this particular case. And from here itself, the support manager can reassign this case to the new agent, which is in this case, Kathy. In addition to that, I can also send a message to Kathy as well, saying, hey, I'm going to be reassigning this case to you. Now, as a next thing, maybe as a manager, I've also figured out that the original agent that was assigned to this particular case probably has some training and coaching needs. So what I can do directly from here is, first of all, I can mark this particular case for review, which basically is going to trigger a workflow and tell the auditor that specifically review this particular case. But I can also send a message and share the case directly with the auditor from here as well. All right, so this was the second demo. Just a quick recap. As a manager, we took a case that was likely to escalate. We reviewed it on why the ML model thinks it's likely to escalate, get a summary of everything that has happened on the case. We leveraged AI to determine what the next best step was. In this particular case, reassigning the case to a different agent, and in the end, marking the case for audit. All right, let's move on to the third user persona, which is a QA auditor. From a workflow perspective, what we're going to see here is we're going to review some compliance scores and trends across different cases, which is essentially a dashboard view. We will see how an auditor can conduct a quality review on a complex case, how he can use a scorecard to assess agent skills and behaviors, create and share that feedback directly back with the support engineer. And in case the support engineer does not agree with that feedback, we have the dispute workflow where the auditor and the agent can essentially talk to each other. We're going to look at that very quickly as well. And then, of course, maintain a consistent evaluation criteria across all agents in all cases. So with that, let's switch over to the demo. Now, as Kritika just said, we were on that case. From there directly, I can launch this case as a QA auditor in our Elevate product. So now I'm again exactly on the same case. It's the same omni-channel case that had a voice call and all those things. So now I have the case here as an auditor. The first thing that I can also do is I can, for example, your L1, L2 support may have corresponded in a different language. So I can switch to if it was the original language, I can switch to a different language. And then we can also do the sentiment detection on the translated text. That way, if there was some part of the correspondence that happened in non-English, we can still help the auditor get the complete perspective of it by seeing the entire case timeline in English and then do the sentiment detection on that. As you can see here, as we are scrolling through it, you're getting all the different signals for the parts where the customer was saying something, right? Then you also have this voice call now here. First of all, from here itself, the auditor can play back the voice call itself. And as you can see on that voice call, there are the different colors, and they are essentially also depicting the acoustic models that we support in our platform. For example, we can identify if there was, during the voice call, any dead air, or what was the tonality of the agent while the agent was actually talking to the customer. So it's not just on the sentiment data and not just on the text, it's actually also on the voice call itself. And the auditor can specifically, for example, go to the dead air portion of the call and listen to a specific portion of that call as well. And then on the right-hand side, that there is a scorecard, which is, again, completely configurable. We have 15 plus different ML models that we support out of the box that can help the auditor assess the skills and the behaviors of the agent for that particular call recording, for example, right? For example, you can check for whether the agent had the right skills and behaviors to demonstrate empathy. Was the opening correct? Was the closing correct? Was the right technical solution being provided? So there are 15 plus out of the box models. And then the most important thing here is all of this is happening in a completely autonomous mode, which is a big challenge right now with many companies where they can only pick a small percentage of the total cases. There are only as many you can manually QA, right? So with this, 100% of your cases in your system are going to be automatically QA'd, as you can see here. On top of that, of course, based on any of the other insights that the auditor may have, they can perform a manual review on top of it. For example, I can start a manual review where I can either override the auto QA or start with that as the base and make some small changes. So basically helping an auditor first auto QA all 100% of the cases and then add manual wherever as needed. All right, the next part that we wanted to show was the disputes workflow. Now, whether it's manual QA, whether it's auto QA, there are always going to be scenarios where, let's say, the auditor thinks that the agent did not do well, but the agent may think otherwise. And this is where we support the very standard dispute workflow within our platform, where both as an agent as well as an auditor, you can look at, as an agent, you can look at how did the auditor actually score you, and you can agree or disagree, and you can add your comments. And there can be a continuous dialogue between the agent and the auditor to finally agree to whatever was the right scoring for it. For example, and as part of anything that you disagree with, we mandate to add a comment so that there is context for the other party to understand, and ultimately helping resolve the dispute. The last portion that we're going to show here are the assignments, which are also extremely important because while, of course, auto QA is going to be extremely important because it helps you automate 100% of your QA cases, but at the same time, there is always going to be a need for manual QA. And with assignments, you can essentially create simple rules that will always pick certain cases and then have a recurrence of those cases getting manually QA'd. For example, in this particular case, Kritika has picked one of these where you can define the filters. For example, if there is a particular severity, exclude all the low or all the medium priority cases, include all the cases that have more than 20 comments, or you can say anything that has a sentiment score less than this, attention score more than that, or is escalated or is likely to escalate. I always want to manually QA that. So you can create those conditions and define a regular cadence of how you would like to QA such cases. So it's just basically a programmatic way for you to always QA certain kind of cases. And last but not least is the dashboard, where as an auditor, I can also get quick overview of all the different metrics that as an auditor I may be interested in. The overall QA score, the overall auto QA score, or the manual QA score, if there are any weekly or monthly trends that are going to be relevant for them. And we also have a deep dive session on this by Uthaya later in the afternoon. So I would highly encourage, if this is a topic of interest to you, then you should definitely be attending that. All right, so this was the third one. Let's move on to the fourth one, which is an account manager, a technical account manager, or a customer success manager. Here, we're going to look at, let's say an account manager is reviewing a strategic account, and let's say they flagged, one of these strategic accounts has been flagged for churn risk, for example. So we will look at how they can check the health score, get more insights into what were some of the contributing factors that were leading to a low health score in this particular case. They can collaborate with the broader team to address some of the high priority cases. They can also get renewal signals, and the renewal signals can be positive or they can be negative. For example, there could be a churn risk on a particular account, or there could be expansion signals. So they can also get the different commercial signals on the account as well, and also look at some of the account trends and engage with the customer based on those account trends. So let's switch over to the demo once again. So now the persona is typically of an account manager, a technical account manager, or a customer success manager. They typically are going to be living in some kind of a CRM. Again, for demo purposes, we are again taking Salesforce as an example. But as I said, for the agent workflow, the widgets that you see here are reusable iframes that can be embedded into any CRM of choice. So as an account manager, besides the information that you see on the left-hand side, which is coming from your CRM, the widget on the right-hand side is powered by Support Logic, where you get an overall health score for the account. In this particular case, it's 67, which is considered to be low. You can also get a trend line of how the health score has changed over a period of time. You can also see that there is a churn risk that has been identified for this particular account. As an account manager, I can also see the contributing factors. For example, there are 2 active and closed escalations. There are 51 high severity cases. There are a lot of cases open with engineering tickets. There are escalation requests. There are churn risks identified. So I think this is enough information for me as an account manager to be concerned about. I can, of course, also get the account summary view from here itself. But what we're actually going to do is to get more detailed insight, we're going to launch Support Logic from here. And then what you land on within Support Logic is what we call as the Account Hub. Now, again, first of all, like we saw for the support engineer, the support manager, the first thing that you see on the top is the account summary, which is again generated based on large language model, where it basically has 3 portions. It has the current status, which is giving you some key insights to keep you grounded on some of the factual information for that particular account. For example, in this case, for this particular account, there are 59 open cases, including 3 escalated cases. The longest open escalation is 5 days for a particular case. So these are grounding facts that are very important for the account manager to know. The second portion is the signals and the risk indicators. Think of them as all the signals from our sentiment detection engine, which are giving some, let's say, indicators to an account manager. For example, in this particular case, there are 6 frustration signals or 4 critical issues that were detected in the last 5 weeks. Or there are 2 production issue signals that were detected in the last 5 weeks. Now, again, these are not just hardcore facts that you had at the top. These are also sentiments and signals across all the different cases that are open for this particular account. And then, of course, you have the overall trend and issues. Think of them as almost like the next best actions that you would recommend to an account manager on what he or she should be doing, or what are some of the bigger emerging patterns. For example, a pattern could be, in some cases, you could have a lot of a customer with cases that have a lot of engineering ticket issues. Or you could have, in this particular case, for example, there are 3 agents that have a high load of cases. So maybe you as an account manager may want to talk to your support management team and talk about maybe the workload for the agents is not correct, right? So it's giving you some patterns and thereby recommending certain next steps that you should be taking. But then below the summary is actually all the data, which is feeding the account summary. So you have the same score, you have all the contributing factors, which could be your active and closed escalations, it could be the sentiments, it could be the escalation requests, and so on. Let's say I want to look at the 2 active and closed escalations. Now, as an account manager, I do not work on cases, right? I probably do not even go into my case management system, but directly from here, I can, through one click, get a summary of, let's say, just the escalated cases, and again, use the same summary that we saw during the first part of the demo to give the account manager also a quick summary of what's going on this particular case for this particular account. Of course, the account manager here can also share this with the broader team, collaborate with the broader team, put a swarming team together to help avoid such an escalation. Also, you can, for example, look at all the cases and the sentiments associated with those cases. Now, again, maybe it's not important for an account manager to go into each of those, but it still helps an account manager get a quick overview of all the different sentiments for this particular customer. For example, as you can see, in this particular case, there are a lot of frustration sentiments. There is a lot of negative sentiments. So it gives a support manager, an account manager, a quick overview of what is the overall sentiment with this particular customer. What he or she can also do is you can go into support, where you can also look at the case trend for this particular account over a period of time. In this particular case, as you can see, it's not a very positive trend. The case volume is continuously increasing. It also has some key insights about across all the cases, how many need attention, how many have positive signals, how many of the cases probably have product feedback associated to it, and so on. And again, you can pick on any of these, you can pick the commercial signals, and then you can group by any of the different criteria to help an account manager get key insights about this particular account. And last but not least is the commercial signals. As I said, besides just the negativity and the frustration signals, maybe there are renewal and expansion signals there as well. So we are also able to detect the commercial signals at an account level, which is also absolutely important from an account manager persona perspective. All right. With that, we move on to the last part of the demo, which is, I would say, the easiest and the simplest, which is the persona of an end customer. So we've seen support engineer troubleshooting a case, and that was using the precision RAG engine that we talked about. We are using exactly the same engine, but also surfacing it, for example, on your community portal for the end customer directly. So basically, thereby deflecting the case from being created at all. So the very simple workflow that we're going to look at here is, as a customer, I can ask a question, I can get precise answers across all the knowledge sources, similar to what we saw before. Could be static or dynamic sources, could be your past cases, could be your knowledge spaces, could be your Jira tickets or whatever. And you can also get a concise knowledge summary. All right, so this is just an iframe that typically is going to be embedded within your community portal, right? Where I, as the end customer, let's reload that. Perfect. So as an end customer, I can come and ask a question. And then again, our precision RAG engine is one showing us the recommended answer, which is generated based on the large language model. But on the right-hand side, you see the referenced articles that were helping us create the recommended answer. So in this particular case, there are two of them. Kritika, if you also click on, yes, please. You could also look at all the suggested articles. And again, as I said, this could be the knowledge base, this could be the past historical cases and so on. And you can very easily filter based on the relevant knowledge sources that you are interested in, and then see the right ones there. Again, as I said, it's using exactly the same precision RAG engine that we saw and we talked about during the first portion of the demo, just that this is from an end customer perspective, typically embedded within your community portal. So that's basically the end of the demo. Thanks, Kritika, for that. Can we please switch back to the slides? Perfect. All right. As Judy had her in her session as well, there are three things that we promised to you at the beginning of my session. One, we want to cut through the hype and show you the real product. Everything that you've seen today was real live product. Everything is available. If you're an existing customer, you're most likely already using it or implementing it. If you are not an existing customer of Support Logic, if this was something that was interesting for you, we would like to engage in a deeper conversation with you during the course of the day. But everything that you've seen today is available in the product currently. There are so many other technical deep dive sessions that are going to follow this particular one. We have a lot of product experts here in the room today. Kritika on the stage was with me. There is a Thaya back there. There are so many other experts here in the room. I would say use the networking time to talk to the experts to get more detailed insights into everything that I was just giving you a quick preview of. So with that, thank you so much. And please stay tuned and please stay here for all the subsequent sessions as well. Thank you so much.